What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. And you guys know by now I'm not huge on hyperbole, but we're going to review what I would frankly consider the most groundbreaking news of Woody Johnson's tenure as owner for the New York Jets. And this feels highly motivated by the addition of new head coach Aaron Glenn. I think you could definitely throw new general manager Darren Muji into the fray with that as well. But just hearing how Aaron Glenn has talked, hearing some of the sentiments that he's shared now over the course of 3 different press conferences, hearing the consistent message, the theme, and one of the biggest takeaways that I think directly impact this is when he's been asked about culture, he's always stood by the fact that culture is dictated by people. And we, of course, have focused on the on-field product and what that means from a roster standpoint. But one of the things that came to the surface this year that maybe many of us haven't thought about or we just assumed would never really change is we haven't made significant front office personnel changes in over a decade, or in some cases almost 2 decades, as we've seen some of the guys earlier this season leave. And so it felt like no matter what head coach, what GM that we bring in, whether Woody Johnson stays the owner or sells the team, there would be consistent problems like we've seen, regime after regime after regime. By the end of year 2, we're looking at the head coach as a joke, and we're looking at a general manager that suddenly can't draft to save his life and has multiple free agent whiffs with contracts that are just, ridiculous. And we're being saddled with dead money, 5 years after the time that these guys have left, after only playing for a year or 2, if that, in some cases. So hearing this news is crazy. So for one, this article came out at some point midday or late evening Monday, and we'll see some of the details here. But this, I don't know what numbers will come out or how much deeper we'll be able to dive into this until some other reports follow up. But I would be curious to know how many of these employees are actually gone, because the decision needed to be made Monday. So let's go ahead and dive into the article here. It starts off by saying approximately 170 of the New York Jets' 250 employees must decide today, meaning Monday, whether to accept a buyout offer issued earlier this month, a deal that would give the most senior employees more than 18 months of full salary and health insurance if they leave. So pretty fair value, right? I think most of the time when you hear about big companies making these huge cuts, you don't hear really often about these buyouts or anything that really benefits the employees per se. So this is kind of a nice sentiment for Woody Johnson. But the only thing that I can really, and I've been in the corporate setting, right? Financial sector, all this kind of stuff, but I haven't really seen it here. I think you see more of this kind of stuff in IT. And the only thing that really comes to my mind is like Elon Musk taking over Twitter, and you're hearing like half of the workforce has been slashed, right? In that case, like thousands and thousands of employees, but you get the kind of shared sentiment there. Or maybe I guess Facebook is another, popular one that I think most people would understand. But still crazy to think that just by the numbers, quite literally almost 70%, I think 68 exact, it would potentially be gone, right? Assuming every single person completed a buyout. Now, it goes on to say the offer was sent to all non-contractual employees. Sources said there is no financial target in mind, and there will be no involuntary job cuts if fewer people take the buyout than hoped, a source close to the team said. So I would assume that this applies mostly to non-football operations personnel, or at least those guys being excluded, right? So I'm assuming like security, ticketing, sales, some of the stuff we've seen from like the Aaron Rodgers hype videos, right? All of those people I imagine aren't included. And then I'm imagining anybody below maybe like an executive level is safe. Everybody else is accounted for in this 170 people or so that will receive this offer. So pretty significant. And again, most likely plenty of people here that are making football decisions or helping out in that process. In my mind, what I kind of envision happening here is that at some point Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji looked at this, and then of course understanding that we have Rick there now as well, they looked at this and said, hey, we have this guy that evaluates all scouting decisions, for example. And we have person B that kind of operates as a checks and balances guy, right? Maybe evaluates the work of employee A and maybe a subset of people under them, whatever the case is. But these two guys are essentially doing the same thing, right? This is the guy overseeing scouting. This is the guy that's technically overseeing the guy that oversees scouting, but they're doing the same job. But maybe employee B does it better, right? He finds all of the misses or all of the points of data that aren't, accurate or different things of that nature. Let's just roll with this guy and synchronize everything under him, right? Kind of a long-winded example, but that's kind of imagine that's what I envision is happening here. They're talking about streamlining processes, and really, when you look at most businesses, there's going to be opportunity, especially after a number of years of no change, where you're able to cut the fat. So going further into the article, it says the exercise has identified opportunities to operate, align, and innovate more effectively, the spokesperson said. As we position ourselves for this future growth, we felt it was essential to provide our employees with the opportunity to make an informed, autonomous decision about their careers given the direction of the company. So essentially what I'm saying here, right, as it relates to kind of the example about how we're probably filtering out some of these guys, and we just did a kind of a smoke screen to touch as many people as possible, and you let it be known. Maybe you've been unhappy here for a while, but it didn't make sense for you to leave. Here's a boost financially to help you, tide things over while you try to figure it out, etc., etc. Now, there are some quotes from Woody Johnson that kind of further gave the thought process around what this ended up looking like, and I guess him signing off on this being something that we wanted to pursue. The first quote said, "That's something that we thought was consistent with changing culture, giving everybody a chance to go in a different direction if they wanted, seek other opportunities, but also to move the whole organization forward in maybe a new and slightly different way." So again, for the better part of, let's just call it 15 years now, you've had these same people making the decisions, regardless of the head coach or GM being there. And over the course of, let's just say, 12 different head coach and GM combinations, nobody has really thoroughly looked at this front office and said, these guys either aren't quite up to par, or these guys don't really fit what I feel like is the best way to handle things. It always seemed like you've had this element of square object through round hole type situation, and whether it was just them not fully evaluating what was happening from top down, which would be a huge mistake, or it was the fact that Woody Johnson always had the caveat of, hey, these are guys that I feel extremely comfortable with. These are guys that I feel like are acceptable in the job currently, and I want you to be able to find a way to make it work with them, right? If it's not working to your cup of tea, coach them up, develop them, whatever that looks like. I could see this maybe being a little bit of both sides of the spectrum kind of being true in this situation. But the second quote that he had said, "We're in a major transition in terms of culture and the way we do things. We haven't really made major changes in the organization itself in years, decades. So we thought that this was a good time to give everybody an opportunity to reevaluate what they're doing in their lives and the plan we're going to. We want people who are all in 100% to what the plan is with Glenn and Muji on the football side. They have to be on the business side exactly the same, and they have to be together to serve our public, serve our players in a much more innovative way than what we have." So even coming off of some of his other comments at the NFL owners meeting, where he was calling the F grade that he received bogus, and kind of pleading to the players that if they really feel like there's a problem, to come directly to him to seek resolution, right? This still is another element, these quotes specifically, of him kind of recognizing that he hasn't been the best owner since he's owned the team, and in many ways he's maybe hindered us, or he's added to the destruction of many promising seasons for us and killing any chance of consistent success with some of his involvement here, right? everything you hear about his comments directly reflects exactly what Aaron Glenn has been preaching so far, and this is exactly what we needed, right? And I feel like Rick Spielman definitely has a heavy hand in this as well. Not only can he lean on his brother Chris, who has also been one of the most credited people in that Lions turnaround, but he himself has been a part of seeing a lot of success with the Vikings. And so you kind of have this three-headed monster of Glenn, Spielman, and I guess Muji now. I was thinking of a different name in my head, but you have this three-headed monster. Muji seeing the turnaround after Sean Payton joined, right? But obviously being able to survive multiple changes as well. This is a tandem, or really a trio, that feels like they are just hammering away at some of the deepest, darkest problems that we've had, and it's happening quietly. It's one of the things I really appreciated about Aaron Glenn being forthcoming with during his press conference during the NFL owners meeting, is that he mentioned we plan on moving in silence. We just want to get the things done that are going to lead to the success, in their opinion, and do it without there being a bunch of hoopla, a bunch of rah-rah noise, and having to run to the media to get a pat on the back, right? Jumping back into the article, we have some parts that mention, unlike many buyouts, there's no minimum threshold for years of service. So it goes into there being 3 tiers. That isn't necessarily important here for our standpoint, but two of the last pieces here from the article, the buyout comes after the Jets' 9th consecutive losing season. They're 14 straight without a playoff appearance, the NFL's longest drought. In December, The Athletic wrote a recent article calling out a lot of the dysfunction, Woody Johnson being the root of all of that. So you can imagine that if Aaron Glenn is the same way in front of Woody Johnson that he is in front of the media, he's let him know from afar, right? Prior to you becoming the owner, Leon Hess being the guy in charge, right? This is what I seen when we had the opportunity to see some consistent success under Bill Parcells, and then, whatever the drop-off happened. But here's how I envision seeing things. Here's what I've heard from afar. Here's what I'm seeing up front. Here's the evidence of what's still in place that I'm seeing that is detracting from us being able to go and handle the things the proper way that we're seeing. And I think in this case, right, Woody Johnson has been very open to the feedback. It hasn't seemed like he's taken the criticism to, too much to heart, right? Obviously, he's making some very tangible changes. I won't quite say improvements yet, but changes to how we want to operate and how we want to facilitate. So, I couldn't be more than excited to hear that this is going on, right? I don't know what this looks like. Do you suddenly drop from 250 employees to like 130, right? How much are you really streamlining a lot of these processes? What of these people that may decide to actually take this buyout and leave are going to see replacements coming? And I would imagine, right, you can't necessarily do a ton unless you already have some potential answers in play for something like this. So I'm expecting there to be some more front office news that comes out, at some significant ones, right, before the regular season officially kicks off, just in the way of what does this full speed organizational shift look like under Woody Johnson and Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji and Rick Spielman. And who knows, right? At this point, I think whether you love the free agency moves or not, whether you love maybe how some of the strategies that come to mind based on all of these individuals and what that means for the draft, who knows? All I can say is at this point, we are seeing things that we've never seen during any new regime coming in. And the fact that I think a lot of us can buy into what's currently happening, not just because it's some of these wholesale changes, but hearing the message from Aaron Glenn, seeing the way Darren Muji goes about his business, knowing the resources and connections that Rick Spielman has to be able to help guide us in the right direction. It's hard to imagine us, I don't want to say winning the offseason here, right? But it's hard to imagine that we aren't putting ourselves in a position to really see a level of success that we haven't before. And that might not mean that we get 9 or 10 wins this season, but it may mean that all of a sudden everybody's kind of sitting on the edge of the seats wondering, okay, do I really want to be here? Do I need to, what kind of changes do I really need to make in order to prove myself to this new regime and, buckle in, and as Aaron Glenn mentioned already, get ready for the ride. So let me know what you guys think, right? I know we don't have names here. We don't really have titles or anything that's coming out as of yet anyways. Maybe some more details will drop by tomorrow. But let me know what you guys think about this entire shift that Woody Johnson is implementing under the guidance of Aaron Glenn and company. And I'll catch you guys again. Peace.